So here we're gonna start, part two, of like the meta talk. Last time we talked about brawl, right, and like why brawl is good, where brawl is good, different like types of brawl, right. Now we're gonna focus on double bubble, right. So we're gonna go straight into double bubble. We're gonna talk about like sort of like what are the different types of double bubble. We're gonna talk about why it's good, where it's good, why Winston not ball, and like where would you run it? Okay, so double bubble. Let's start breaking it down. So what are the different versions, right? Like types. So obviously double bubble is obviously gonna have Winston Zarya. That's sort of a given. I hope, right? Now the biggest question is what are the DPS, right, and what are the supports? And I'll break the DPS down into different categories. Warp, warp. Okay. So the first category, right, is going to be, do you want angles to play more for angles? Do you want to play more for spam? Or do you want to play a little bit more brawly? Brawly, right? And at a higher level, right, just because you're playing for angles doesn't mean you can't play like spam. Just because you're playing as spam doesn't mean you can't brawl. But at a very simple level, right, like if you're running certain DPS, it's easier to play as angles, right, than it is to brawl. For example, if you want to play angle-wise, right, you would immediately think of like stuff like, Tracer, Sombra, right? And then maybe at a niche picks, right? You could maybe go Doom, you could maybe go Genji, right? You could maybe go Echo, and you could run these, right? And like I'm not gonna lie, like I was like ringing for a team, and the enemy team was running double bubble with Sombra Genji. So it was Winston, Zarya, Sombra Genji, Bergana, and all they did was alt cycle. They had grab one fight, they had EMP the other fight. The other fight after that, they had Nano Blade. So it was just like hard win condition after the next, and it was awful to play against. But I don't think that'll be hard meta, right? I think Tracer Sombra is really strong. I mean, if you've got like a really good Genji player, really good Echo player, Doom player, you might play around that on certain maps, right? Now the spam variant, right? Hi Aurora, you want to say hi to everybody? Come back here. Oh, we have a surprise visitor, guys. Aurora has decided to grace us with her presence and cry for food because she's hungry. I'll feed you after this. Bye bye. Okay, so spam. Spam is looking like you think of spam, you think of like spam heroes, right? And in general, you'll see Tracer, but some people might try and remove the Tracer and go even more spam oriented, or maybe they'll get like an Ashe or Echo, right? And then the second hero, right, will normally be the Ashe or Echo, right? And I'll talk about what support line goes with in a second, but you can probably guess you're gonna have a Mercy, right? So with spam, sometimes you got the Tracer, Ashe, or Echo. Sometimes you might even take out that Tracer and run like Ashe and Echo, or and run that, right? Go hardcore spam. And Brawly, right? Like I think you can already sort of assume this, right? You got the Tracer, you've got the McCree, and you've got sort of an Ashe, right? Ashe can still be Brawly, can also be spam. Niche pick is like Doomfist, right? I'm not saying Doom's going to probably get played. Probably definitely won't, but maybe you've got a God tier Doom, you're playing Temple of Anubis, sure, why not, right? You can run it. Okay, so supports, right? And I'm going to keep this very simple. I'm actually just going to overlayer it, or like put it on top. Is essentially normally you're going to run Brigana because you need like Brigana plays for your tanks, right? Keeps your Zarya, you pocket your Zarya mid fight, Zarya just pops off, you help your Winston early fight, and then you start brawling. But if you want to play more spam oriented, right, and you want to play like slower, preferably against brawl comps, right, you might run Mercy Ana, right? And then you'll give that Echo a pocket, or you give the Ashe a pocket, and all of a sudden, they're dishing out a lot of damage. It's making harder for the brawl team to rotate, and you're getting insane a lot of value, right? And some teams I know for a fact like will run BAP, right, instead of like the Ana, because maybe they're struggling with like high grounds, or maybe they're struggling with like living, right, and want to use verticality or lamp. And I did this is sort of like a fix-it pick, but might end up being good, right? But Brig Ana, Mercy Ana, definitely the move, right? Ana also builds Nano really fast, and we'll talk about how like alts play into this comp, but like Nano's really strong. So yeah. So that's sort of different types, right? So you've got like the angles variant, you got the spam variant, you got the brawly variant, right? And I'm not saying that if you play Tracer McCree, you have to play brawly. You can still play slow and spam. You can still play maybe like flank Kree and like Tayo style and go for angles. But that's a simple way to like think about it. Let's go to the next topic. Next topic is, why is this good? Why are we even talking about double bubble? My age doesn't exist there. Why? this good? Okay, so why is this good, right? So obviously the biggest thing I'm gonna say straight up is Winston got buffed, right? You got 50 more armor. And because you got 15 more armor, right, you're able to live more. And because you can live more, you can hold space more. You're less likely to get blown up instantly. Obviously, yes, Reaper did get buffed too, but you're also getting extra armor. You're not always assuming the enemy team's going to have a Reaper as well. So you can do more, right? You can pressure the enemy team more. You can hold space because your Zarya bubbles you. You're really annoying, right? You put your own Winston bubble, you live, and the more space you hold, the more time you get, right, on pressuring them and building your own ultimates. In general, I'll also say this, right? This comp is really strong, right? And it's definitely map specific, right? But what makes this strong, right, is about how you take a fight. So, it's sort of like how you take your neutrals, right? Whereas whether you're looking for maybe like an anti, maybe you get a pick somehow, maybe you play for nano, maybe you like do a pinch play, right? There's a whole bunch of different like things you can do, right? And essential, this whole concept, a lot of this comes down to like understanding in neutral fights to how to play slow. And this is where a lot of teams struggle with, right? And I'll give you an example later on Temple, like how to actually play slow and how you can do it. But you need to be able to play slow and like play for different things, right? You can even build primal if you play this well enough, right? So, So, and like I said, there's a reason why this isn't played in NA or EU. First of all, both regions love playing first. Both regions love playing Brawl. I say EU is a little bit smarter about playing first and second. But, what I'd say is in Korea, they are so specific with their CDs and their, how smart they play and how they understand their own individual roles and kits, right? That, they're able to get away with more and they're able to play this because they're naturally used to playing second. So let me sort of show you just straight up like what I mean by this and how to like sort of like roughly play. I'm not going to go too much into detail, right, about how his comp is played. And I have actually an old double bubble video, but I want to sort of show you how you could play this versus Brawl on defense on Temple of Anubis. So a very basic instance, right? The Brawl team is going to have to make a rotation somewhere over here. I'm just going to highlight the chokes that the enemy team has to go through, right? You could technically I'll do that too. These are all chokes, right? And what I'm gonna point out, right, is essentially I'm gonna actually change certain colors actually. Yeah, I'll use this. So this is sort of like X. That's a terrible color to use. It's not good. Let's use this color maybe. X1. I'll tell you what it means in a second. X1 / X2, X2. X2, X2. So what I mean by X1 and X2, right, is X1 means that that's where you can go for the first engage and pressure them and get value, whether maybe you get a pick off nade, maybe you just build Winston alt charge, maybe your DPS gets value, right? But you're able to pressure them, right? That's the first time you pressure them, X1. X2 is where you're able to pressure them again, right? So for example, if the enemy team goes like this and makes this rotation, you pressure them first on X1, then you can pressure them again on X2, okay? Now, and I'll talk about it more, right? If you go this way, you can pressure them maybe on X1. Maybe you can pressure them over here. A little unlikely, right? But then you can pressure them here and pressure them on the high ground. I'm not going to go too much into the scene, but what I will say is if they start rotating this way, you need to look to try and kill them. Because if an enemy team gets high ground, it becomes very rough for, a double bubble team. Now, as you know, Brawl team wants to essentially kill people. They want to run over, right? But essentially, if you position in a way where they can't just kill someone simply, they just can't, they don't have anyone target to go on because everyone's mobile, it's gonna be very hard for them, right? So for instance, your Zarya could start here, but then rotate up and go here. Your Ana could play here with your Brig, right? Your Winston could again do the close range stuff. Your Tracer could play with the Winston, and then you could have an Ashe here, right? And now if you look at this, right? If the enemy team makes this red rotation right over here, where are they going to be able to go on? The Zarya is on high ground, the Ashe is on high ground, the Brig on is on high ground. The enemy team, even after X1 and X2, is going to have to make a third rotation here, right? Which is this rotation over here, which again, maybe Winston will be able to go over here again on X3. Or maybe they'll go to point, which again is an X3, and be able to hit him again. So basically what's happening is on defense, the defensive team is able to hit them 3 times, right? And because they can hit him 3 times, and each time the Winston's actually holding space, it's not just in and out like ball, right? Ash is getting damage, Zari's getting charged, Ana's maybe getting nades or building nano, right? Tracer is looking for picks, right? Because and all these times, by the way, you're forcing CDs, you're forcing, Reaper Wraith, you're maybe forcing McCree stun, you're forcing bubbles if you have Zari, you're forcing lamp, right? So each next time after each X, right? There's a more probability chance of you actually getting, a kill because they have less CDs, right? But obviously there's ways to deal with this as Brawl, right? By like, being smart about your CDs, playing for certain ultimates so you can take space too, right? But essentially, if it's played really well, it makes it very hard for the Brawl team to actually push anyone because everyone's mobile. And that's why I said earlier here is like, you need to be able to punish if they go here because you don't want them to be able to get on your honor break. And even if they do, there's rotations your honor break can take in which they can flip the map. I'm not gonna go too much into that, but there is rotations they can do. So this is sort of how it works. Hopefully this makes sense, right? And like I said, you can play for Primal because Winston can build it. Play for Nano, right? Your Ash is getting massive dynamites plus nades. Your Tracer could get picks, right? But you're able to like farm. Okay, we're gonna go back here. Okay. And like the biggest thing, right, I'll emphasize and why this is difficult is you have to stay alive. It's not easy, right? Like your Winston could explode instantly, right? Because maybe you don't manage CDs well, right? But your Winston has to live. Your Tracer has to live, right? Your Honor needs to not get like headshot across the map, right? So you have to be smart about living. And that's what makes it hard. But it's definitely doable. And that's why it's run a lot in Korea. So hopefully that makes sense. The other reason why I think it's also really good, and I'm just going to be honest and say this, is the alt rotation. The straight up alt rotation is just nasty. If you just think about the alts you get, right? So you can think of Primal. You can think of Grav. You can think of, let's assume we have Tracer, right? So Pulse. Let's think of, let's say you've got Bob. It could be Bob. It could be, EMP. It could be, High Noon, right? It just depends, what second DPS you have here, right? Then you've got Nano, and then you've got Rally. So I'll just tell you straight up, you have like 2 straight up win conditions that are really clear here. You have Grav, and you have Rally. Both these ultimates, Grav, both these ultimates are really, really, really strong in big win conditions. And you can like add stuff to them to make it even better, right? You can grab Pulse, right? You could Rally, and then after the Rally, you can maybe like Nano, or you could maybe Primal, right? To keep going, right? If you've got EMP, then you've got another win condition over here, right? So it depends on how you want to play. But you've got really strong ults, and you can use them in different ways, right? You also think about that you're playing for time and getting value over time and forcing CDs, right? Primal buys time. Nano buys time, plus also can get kills, right? So you're sort of able to use these ultimates for more time, right? Or get value instantly. So now I think a lot of people have a lot of questions on like, okay, this is great and all, like these alts look awesome. I sort of understand how you kite. It's obviously really hard to do this, but why are we running this and not ball, right? Like why are we just forgetting about ball? Why is ball not played? Right, I'll tell you right now, like ball could be played. You have like an insane ball player, right? Like there are ball players that are absolutely nuts and just do so much. Sure, you could probably run ball and still get away with it, right? But the problem with ball, right, is the fact of, first of all, ball versus Winston comps, right? Well, if you play Winston comp correctly, you should be able to live versus a ball engage because you've got, Pax, you've got Brig, you've got Ana, you've got Kree if you're playing Kree, or then you've got Zarya, right? So you've got Nade, Pax, and Bubble. You should be able to live. And if you have a Kree stun, you got stun as well. So, and if you're playing versus Brawl, we talked about it in the first spot, you should be able to live too, right? So essentially, you should be able to live versus it, right? But the biggest problem I actually have, right, with ball comp is you're never holding space. Winston jumps in, right, or walks up if you're like playing it correctly, right? Scouts walks up and you jump out. Ball slams and gets out instantly. There's no holding space anymore. Ball is all about slamming, getting value, forcing CDs, and then maybe someone following up and getting value. Whereas Winston, you can hold space by time, chill, right? And then maybe someone gets value. If you don't, you back up. And then you go in again, hold space. So Winston gives you more time, right? Whereas ball isn't, you don't have a lot of time. You can also get punished a bit easier, and also is nerfed because of, the boop. The other thing I want to mention, right, is Winston, right, can sort of hold corners. Ball, you can't really hold corners, right? Winston could like, hold a corner and poke and cleave from the corner. Ball, you could hold the corner and like, do damage, but that doesn't really do anything, right? You're not bubbling, you're not like displacing, not slamming them. So you're not actually getting that much value, right? The other thing I want to point out is if you're playing ball, it's a little bit more awkward to play for like Nano Winston, right? Nano Winston's really strong and you'll build it really fast, right? With the Temple Anubis example. If you're playing with ball, it's gonna be harder, right? To like actually like build that nano, and like it's gonna be harder because your ball is gonna be in and out, and like they may not take as much damage because they're using shield. And also Nano Ball is just weird. Nano Winston's a lot better. Uh, so yeah, and the other thing I'm gonna mention, right, is like Winston got buffed, right? So he's got more armor, so it's a little bit easier for him to play. Winston also can manage like verticality a little bit better as well, I'd say. And yeah, let's talk about. And you can like ask more questions about this, and I'll happily answer it. I'm not gonna go too much into detail. So where do you run this? Like the biggest question probably people have is like where. Like the first VOD we talked about, like Brawl. Brawl's like amazing. I can't write right now. Like Brawl's amazing. So where does double whoops, where does double bubble fit in, right? Map wise. So I'll say straight up, right? It's gonna be bad on enclosed maps and short maps and like no verticality and open, right? It's gonna be, let's use a different color here. Trying to be colorful. I hope you guys like the colors. I don't know. It could be like awful, but it's gonna be bad really on enclosed maps. Why? The Brawl team is just gonna run you over before you're able to play slow, and your Winston's just gonna die. Double bubble, if your Winston's forced out really early, or like it dies, or like is forced out to the point where they can't go back in, then the Brawl team is just gonna win. Right? Double bubble is all about time, like maximizing the time you have and getting as much time as possible and value out of your Winston. If it's in a closed map or a short map, right? You're not able to build that time because the enemy team's already on you, and there's no verticality, then where's your backline gonna play? Are they gonna play in Narnia? Then they can't do anything in Narnia. They need to have some type of high ground or something where they can sort of like, posture so it's hard for the enemy team. And the other thing I'll also add is like open maps, right? Like imagine playing this comp on like Junkertown. It'd be really awkward for Winston to play. You could try it, but it'd be really awkward and really suboptimal. So like I said, especially the other thing I think about is like Koth maps, right? You essentially will just get run on, right? And you're not going to be able to play for those ults, really. You're not going to be able to play for the CDs, right? And once your Winston's forced out, your backline's vulnerable, right? There's no high ground. They can just get run on. And the other way to think about Koths, right, is the first fight on Koths is so important, right? It's all about, the neutral. If you win the neutral, like I think it's like 70% of the time you win neutral, you're probably going to win the Koth round because you win the neutral. I'm not going to go too much into it, but you win the neutral, you get an alt advantage, and then when you're 99-0, you lose that fight, come back, you 99-99, you win the 99-99 fight, right, and you win with alts. Something else to also mention, right? Double bubble re-engaging, right? Could be decent, right? But versus a Brawl team, it's a little harder to re-engage too because Brawl holds chokes, and it's a little hard for double bubble to get through chokes, right? So, and this is sort of segue, right? So into carrying chokes. So we talked about it's bad. We talked about sort of Koth maps. I want to talk about like chokes. So as someone who was again sort of on TI and absolutely loved chokes, absolutely loved spawn camping Havana, Junkertown, most maps, where it was viable, we did it. Like even BH does it a lot too. If anyone saw BH play, double bubble. If the enemy team is spawn camping you, right? Let's say like you're playing Junkertown, right, and you're attacking, and the enemy team on defense is running like Brawl, and they're spawn camping you. It's going to be very hard for your Winston to do anything because as soon as he walks out, he's just going to get wave-walled, or like if he jumps anywhere, he has no jump anymore and he's just going to get exploded, right? So eventually you maybe swap his double bubble to like more of a spam comp. Maybe you get Mercy Echo, maybe you get Mercy Ash, and you try and like take angles. You get a Tracer and you try and like spam the people out. Maybe you get a Pharah. But the problem is, I'll say right off the bat, as someone who played the Brawl variant, people who play Brawl and Spawn Camp know how to deal with Pharah. They know how to deal with angles. They understand how to like, still push. They understand if they're down one, they know what to do. Right. So, on maps that enemy teams are, running Brawl and spawn camping and abusing these chokes, it's going to be really hard for double bubble to get value. Right. Especially on attacks. So you might see teams try and do the spam Brawl, right? Like the defensive team is running, Brawl and spawn camping. You might see, the attacking team swap to like a spam double bubble, or they're going to say, you know what? I don't care about spam double bubble. I'm just going to mirror Brawl now and do that. So yeah. But now going more into, other maps, right? So we talked about, it's bad on enclosed maps. It's bad on short maps. There's no verticality for my backlines. So it's bad. Open maps is rough, right? It's bad on Koth. You got to care chokes, spawn camping. But where's it good then? Right? Like talking all about where it's bad, where's it good? But it's actually really good on certain maps, right? I'm gonna say it up straight, like longer maps, right? That have verticality, and where you can essentially start building alts, right? Will be really, really strong. Because earlier we talked about it before, right? But once you start building alts and you start rotating your alts, or then it becomes very annoying to deal with, right? Like again, we think about grav plus like pulse maybe, plus maybe like I don't know something else, right? Then you think about rally plus I don't know like maybe nano after, not plus like after nano, or maybe like after it maybe primal. Honestly, if you play right, you should be able to win with just rally because rally is broken, right? But you're able to sort of use long maps to your advantage and sort of abuse high ground, like we saw in Temple of Anubis, right? For example, Route 66, right? You could definitely abuse high grounds with your with your backline on first and second, third, still doable, but you could do it, right? Dorado also, right? You could definitely abuse high grounds and sort of like look for those chokes and understand, like I showed you on Temple, right? You could sort of understand, okay, these are the chokes I want to pressure, right? This is my first one. This is my second one, right? When I go from after the first one goes, my second one goes, my backline needs to rotate a bit further back, right? Because we don't want to be run on. So sort of understanding, how to your backline positions and whatnot, and how you sort of cleave. So in general, right? Hopefully this sort of give you a little understanding of why double bubble is good, why it's difficult, really difficult, right? But why it's good and why it has a place in the meta, and it's really strong on long maps. I'm not going to go too much into how to play this right now. I actually did a double bubble video a while ago. You should go check that out if you're interested. I will do more stuff on double bubble because I think it's really strong, and I think it's difficult to play. So I want to make sure there's content for everyone to understand what their role is, and what the backline's role is, what the frontline's role is. So I'll make sure I get content out on that soon. But yeah, so hopefully this makes sense. Again, I think you should again from this you should understand where you run it, like where it's bad, where it's good. You should understand the different types, right, of double bubble, right? Brawly, angles, spam. You should understand, why when ball isn't played that much. You should also understand why it's good. Okay, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed.